Hello and welcome to today's talk on transforming the induction of labour pathway. Your speakers, Natasha Ponting and Kate Conway from Royal Surrey Hospital, outline how using Dilapan-S as their frontline induction method changed their IoL process to become entirely midwifery-led, and the resulting positive impacts on the ward environment, capacity management, and patient feedback. They'll share what actions they took which allowed them to successfully introduce Dilapan-S as their frontline induction agent, how they manage staff training, and their comprehensive antenatal education toolkit. So let's get into it.
Hello, hi. So Kate and Natasha, you are welcome to move on forward and crack on with your part of the presentation.
We can move to the next slide. Thank you. So we thought we'd start right at the beginning. So how did we start with Dilapan? So it was back in 2019, just before the COVID pandemic started. We had huge issues that you're probably very familiar with in managing our induction of labour pathway. We had long waits for getting women over to the delivery suite for ARM, lots of unhappy women constantly. They're sore, they're tired. We were using lots of pain relief early on in the induction process. And complaints were a daily part of our working life about the delays with induction, having to sit and wait on the antenatal ward, communication with staff, all of these things that they were making patients unhappy, staff unhappy. So we were really looking to see how we could improve our induction of labour pathway. And we came across Dilapan as a mechanical method of induction and thought, we'll give it a go. So we had a 1-year trial of Dilapan. It was a year of working. We took about a year to get a trial agreed through clinical governance, obstetric agreement, and working with our maternity and neonatal voices partnership for how we were communicating with the women. The initial goal was solely to see if we could improve patient satisfaction with induction of labour and the flow of women through the antenatal ward to delivery suite. And we weren't really considering any potential for outpatient induction at that point. We've trialled 30 women, and that led through COVID as well. And it really did change how we were able to manage women within the antenatal ward with the induction process through the COVID pandemic as well. Next slide, please, Shine.
So we began just by starting small. So we were focusing on training the midwives who work as core on the antenatal ward and the capacity development team. So that started in summer 2020, which was no mean feat because we were still dealing with COVID very much at that time. And then we commenced our initial trial using Dilapan. I'd say that the training, although we rolled it out, it was initially slow progress. I think it was obviously very different for staff initially rather than inserting ProPress or Prostins, obviously a bit more to it in terms of inserting Dilapan. And initially, midwives were trying to get on board with using a speculum to visualise the cervix, which is something that many of them weren't used to doing. So that took a little bit of time just to for them to feel confident using that method. But some people did prefer to keep using prostaglandins initially. So I think, that's almost a cultural thing. That's just what they were used to doing. So it took time to get people around to the idea of using Dilapan. We had quite a lot of involvement and support by Shelley. So she was heavily involved at the start, would come in and be helping to support with the training, or just to speak to staff about different techniques and tools and answering those questions that people had initially. But the feedback that we had from the women right at the start was that they found it to be comfortable. They could sleep, they could go about, their day on the ward with no discomfort at all. So it hugely improved their experience right from the start.
So from our trial data, we very quickly saw that we have no change in outcomes. So our normal delivery rate stayed the same, our emergency section rate stayed the same, our instrumental delivery rate stayed the same. So that was really positive, that it wasn't going to negatively impact. But the one thing that we did find was that we have no category 1 cesarean sections. So we have no bradycardias, no hyperstimulation. And that was a big change to the to our cultural change within using Dilapan. And added to that, our complaints went from at least 2 to 3 a day to 0. So it made a huge impact quite early on in how we were running our service. So we very quickly were able to show the data from the trial and have it agreed that we would move to Dilapan as our main method of induction of labour. It also helped that around this time our freezer broke, so we weren't able to have prostaglandins on the ward. So progress wasn't easily available for the staff to jump back to if they weren't being confident. So they did have to come from the CPD team, come to me, come to our ward manager, and be actively supported in putting Dilapan in. So our Dilapan success rates increased quite rapidly. Next slide, please, Jen. So then we began to roll out Dilapan training to all of our new starters from September 2021. So that was the preceptees or midwives coming from other trusts, as well as any new obstetric doctors. So that started from about October that year as well. And then we planned to have it as part of our mandatory maternity update day from 2022. So that was January that year. So that by the end of that year, all of our midwives received hands-on training with the Dilapan models. And which Shelley came to support with as well. So every month we'd be training probably 20 midwives and using Dilapan. And the practice development team also completed the Train the Trainer course as well, just to further enhance the training that we were delivering. We then had continued to have support from Shelley and other trainers since 2021, and that's still ongoing now. And we, as a practice development team, the core ward staff, Kate, all of us are always around to support, especially to capture maybe agency midwives who haven't had specific training will come out and support on the shop floor as well. So as I said, we have moved. We moved in 2022 to having Dilapan as our main method of induction of labour, and our recent guidance has just been updated. And that has now become an outpatient induction of labour option for pretty much the majority of our women. Our guidelines are quite loose in that any woman can have an outpatient induction of labour with Dilapan as long as there is no reason for maternal or fetal monitoring on a regular basis. So in other words, unless we are admitting them because they're PIH or preeclamptic, and that is a reason for keeping them in, then they can go home. We have supported changes in our induction of labour pathway by making sure that staff have the right equipment in the right places. So we have an induction labour trolley, which you see in the picture, which has everything in it. So the midwives can take the trolley to wherever they need to with a wedge, with an ultrasound wedge that puts the pelvis in the right position to support a speculum or digital insertion. So if there isn't a side room available in our antenatal ward, they can take the woman over to the postnatal ward or to delivery suite, and everything's with them. So it should be a smooth process.
A mobile service.
A mobile service, absolutely. We've also introduced agency midwife study days last summer, so that our regular agency staff are also familiar with the process and able to insert Dilapan. And for our third year student midwives workshops for the last 18 months have also included Dilapan training. So we're actually now in a position where the majority of our staff, probably at least 40% of our staff, have known no other method of induction other than Dilapan, because of how it's worked, which has been probably hugely successful for us. Yeah. So now in 2024, as I said, we have had no change to our clinical outcomes. Our cesarean section or delivery rates remain very similar to how they were pre-Dilapan. And our induction of labour process is entirely midwifery-led. So there is no delays waiting for obstetric staff to come and prescribe prostaglandins. We are able to manage our flow much better. So we stagger our inductions. We bring our high-risk inductions in the evening. So they have their Dilapan in the evening and then they go home overnight or are admitted overnight depending on what needs to happen. And then they come back in the morning, have their Dilapan removed, and then they're ready for a day to be on oxytocin during the day. And equally, our low-risk inductions, they're started in the morning, they have their Dilapan during the day, and then hopefully we do see an increase in spontaneous labour in the evenings. And that's really been reflected in our staff satisfaction. We've just gone through a massive peak through September, October and November with activity, and we've been able to manage our inductions much better. We have, although we still get delays with women waiting to come over to the delivery suite for rupture of membranes, the women are not uncomfortable. They're not tired. They can go home and be phoned and brought back when a bed is available. They are having far less vaginal examinations. And our pain relief costs alternatively have also gone down, and our bed stay costs. So we are, it's a much nicer place to be. And we're not having to answer multiple complaints every day, and formal complaints as well. So when you think 3 years ago, I had a minimum of 1 to 2 formal complaints a month regarding our induction of labour process and the delays that women have experienced. I haven't had one for nearly a year, a formal complaint. And PALS and complaints on the ward, again, that used to be a daily occurrence. Now it's something that happens very, very infrequently. So antenatal education, so part of changing our induction of labour pathway was also about changing the information we gave to women. We worked with our maternity neonatal voices partnership to, we did literally my mind's gone blank. What was it called? We did an event looking at the induction of labour and what would women want to change. And there was lots of things that they would want to change, but the biggest theme that came out was information. That paper leaflet was not enough information. They were going to Google, they were going to social media, they were listening to influencers and their experience of induction of labour. So actually we thought, no, we need to take this back and take control. So we produced 5 videos in-house and created a digital induction of labour toolkit that they access via a QR code, which is everywhere in the department and antenatal clinic. And they're also given a postcard when they're 36 weeks that they can access via a QR code. And there are 5 in-house videos that talk about informed consent, that talk about Dilapan, that talk about prostaglandins, that talk about pain relief, and most importantly, what to expect. And that goes through everything from what to expect on the wards, what delays might look like, what will happen when they get to delivery suite. And then we've also included relaxation audios, further reading about induction of labour from evidence-based sources, birth planning tools for induction of labour, positive induction of labour birth stories that our women have provided us with to share, and positive affirmations and partner tips as well. And that's been hugely successful as well. That has increased the information that women feel that they have access to. And that's been reflected in our CQC patient survey as well.
We have we have several pieces of feedback, but this is actually available from the Birth and Beyond part of our the portal that we have. This is just a nice story really about someone's positive experience about induction, who was induced using Dilapan, and she reported that it worked well, and then had a good experience. So it's nice to be able to share these stories. So we've touched on this a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, as we said, we've had no formal complaints regarding induction of labour since we've changed to Dilapan. We've had no PALS or verbal complaints, and we've had no negative feedback from our maternity neonatal voices partnership. And in the last 5 years, we've had 1 clinical incident regarding Dilapan, and that was a minor cervical laceration during insertion on a woman who had significant cervical surgery previously. So there was some learning for us there, but apart from that, it's worked really well for us.
So moving forwards, we would like to explore further about how we can increase midwives' confidence with supporting outpatient induction of labour. So that's more about that initial risk assessment, identifying who is suitable for outpatient induction, Dilapan, which is many of the women, and just increasing people's empowerment to be able to make those decisions and get that to happen. We are still sometimes as well seeing occasions where maybe a second round of Dilapan would have been appropriate, but there may be a tendency to use Crostin instead once you remove those initial rods. So we'd like to develop staff confidence again, and the expectations of the women that that's what will happen. So they might have a first round and then another round of Dilapan if the first wasn't successful. There is a competency that's being developed at the moment as well for Dilapan use. So all the midwives will be able to be assessed, and particularly all the new starters that are coming through as well, to show that we've got consistency in the training. Going to be doing an audit in the management of oxytocin as well, and especially the decision making. You could say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so one of the things we have identified, because we audit our Dilapan stats regularly, is the use of oxytocin. So we do find that women who have a Dilapan induction, they can tend to be on oxytocin for longer. It can take longer to get them into labour. And we have seen a theme of bailing out early with oxytocin. So when there's no other obvious reason, it's just she's been on oxytocin for X number of hours. And it's variable between clinicians. So we're starting an audit of how our oxytocin is managed, a formal audit, and then hopefully developing a clinician decision-making toolkit for ending labour basically and moving to emergency section. So that's just about to start. We've been accepted to the Molly trial, which is commencing in January. So Molly is a trial run out of Chelsea and Westminster around mifepristone outpatient labour induction. So our induction labour process will stay exactly the same, but women will have an additional appointment 48 hours before they come in, where they'll receive either a dose of mifepristone or a placebo, to see if that improves outcomes for induction of labour, but also spontaneous labour. So that's quite exciting. We've been introducing biomechanics to all our staff, but we're introducing specific biomechanics training for induction of labour on the antenatal ward, which our midwives will support partners to use with their birthing partner. Thank you very much for listening. Anybody got any questions?
Oh, hello. I'm an antenatal ward manager at Trelisk Hospital in Cornwall, and we had a trial of Dilapan, and we're hopefully bringing it back in the new year. But we just need to work on following audit and everything. I'm just finishing off bits like that until we bring it back. But there was just a few questions that I had from the trial that we did that we found. We found there were challenges in things like you've said, like the cultural change of changing and offering outpatient more, because it's safer to offer outpatient more. And we had a lot of trouble around that cultural change. The other thing that we found is that we our staff, all kind of a new thing that came in is all the staff were to rotate. So I'm bringing back that we need core staff, and we're going to train just a specific team to start off with. But issues that we had is that we found that sometimes, and from the audits, that it looks as if from the vaginal examinations when they were transferred to delivery unit that the Dilapan wasn't inserted correctly. So did you find that? Is it? I'm guessing it's less and less now, or is that something that you still find, or how you kind of overcome? I know it's just training and everything, but
It's being mindful of the fact that when you get an influx of new starters, new midwives, new doctors, you will see a peak with Dilapan not being successful, and that's purely down to skill. The more skill the inserter, the more likely it is to be successful. Because if you've got Dilapan in the right place, the thermostat will be successful. She will be ARMable in 12 days. So it's generally that, and it's something you just have to keep plugging away with. Probably 2 years for us to be in a position, because everybody would be like, oh, she's had Dilapan, it's not going to work, she's not going to be air-removable. So it was things like buying the ultrasound wedges, making sure using delivery suite beds so that you could put them in orthotomy if you needed to. being mindful of the things that will put the cervix in the right position, and training.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good. Thank you. And I just had a couple of other things, if that's okay. Um, when do you, so I know, is it optimal time to remove them is between 12 and 15 hours, was it? But we tend to keep, because of delay in going to delivery unit and everything, it was always toying between, do we take them out at that 12 to 15, or do we leave them in for that kind of, and remove them just for that 24 hours? But my worry was, and I was always toying between it, is that if we left them in for the 24 hours and they weren't in the right place, we had an opportunity where we could have reinserted them. So I don't know how you kind of do it, or what your thoughts are on that.
I was going to say, I think Shelley's probably got some data on this as to how the effectiveness of it goes down quite dramatically after that 12 to 15 hour time. That's right, isn't it?
Sorry, yeah. So after that 12 to 15 hours, obviously you have to remember that your dilators are no longer expanding. So it's not stimulating the cervix anymore. There are studies to say that there was a potential that can drop your vaginal delivery rate, but it's a relatively small study, so it's not something that we enforce. So we do have some hospitals that leave it in for the full 24 hours. But as you say, you do lose the opportunity of actually reassessing the cervix and seeing whether there could have been an opportunity to change. So really, it is dependent from hospital to hospital. I think, yeah, if you can encourage and can do that 12 to 15 hours, it does work really, really well. It's with those things in mind. But we do appreciate, you have to go by what is going to work for your team and your hospital, and how best it's going to be managed.
So we remove it 15 hours is our maximum. Offer women a sweep. And that if there is delay, we send them home, and we bring them back. We recommend that every 24 hours as a minimum, they have another vaginal examination and a sweep as a standard.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good to know. Thank you so much. And one last question is about, you said about the biomechanics. I've been thinking about that lots, and how I want to introduce it, just generally more kind of knowledge and everything onto the ward. Is there anything, or kind of resources, or is yours all been kind of in-house that you've been kind of teaching and introducing that?
We've had a mixture of the two. So our Birth and Beyond, so that's our parent education lead midwives, are both trained trainer to deliver biomechanics training. So we've had some in-house classes, but we've also been in touch with Molly O'Brien, so the biomechanics OG midwife, and she's run a couple of sessions for us as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's really good to know. Thank you so much.
So my name obviously is Rosie. I'm the labour ward matron at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. Really, really fascinated by your results. Just wondering if you would be able to share more about the overnight Dilapan for the high risk patients, because our clientele are incredibly high risk, and kind of what that looks like, and how you manage to navigate any patients that don't speak English.
Yeah, it's challenging. So our induction of labour toolkit, I'll go to that one first. Our induction of labour toolkit is translatable into 133 different packages through Google Translate, and it's subtitled, so all the subtitles can translate. So that has really helped us. Huge use of language line, and really identifying that early. So, and using that, if we need to, making that 36-week appointment longer so that we can discuss it with them then with the translator. But it is challenging. I think whether you're using prostaglandins or Dilapan, it's challenging. And then for our high-risk women, so 75% of our clientele are technically classed as obstetric-led, so they are, but are really high-risk women. So your really high BMI, your PET women, your really small babies. So that's what we would class as our complex. So we will generally admit them, and they will come in. They come in at 7 just before handover, and then the night staff will admit them. and then start the Dilapan. And so they will have the Dilapan overnight, and they'll be watched. They'll have CTGs as normal as per any admission, and then they can have their Dilapan taken out first thing in the morning, and then be transferred to late ward for ARM and oxytocin. And that's where it generally well.
Thank you so much. You're helpful.
Okay, sorry.
I just wanted to quickly add as well, Rosie, that we are going to be translating our patient information leaflet as well into a number of different languages. So yeah, watch this space. We should have some resources available as well to support with those conversations. Going through some of the bits that AG Health also provide. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about sort of the training processes and, you know, how that is an ongoing thing to support with. Obviously, we did want to have a good chat about sort of patient counselling as well. So as Kate already mentioned, you know, patient information leaflets aren't the be all end all. It is about those conversations that we are having sort of face to face with the women as well, and giving them that opportunity to really ask the questions so that they feel fully informed. So to support with that, we do have our patient information leaflet, which is helpful even for healthcare professionals that aren't used to Dilapan, just to read through and have a bit more information about. That is available in either sort of black and white, which allows you to print it from hospital printers, which always aren't always the most easy to print off of. But there's also a full colour version as well, which we can send over to you. We also have cue cards. There is a patient website page either on the AG Health website or dilapan.com. And then we are also do have a feedback survey as well available, which can be accessed either via a QR code or just via a link. We are really, really trying to get more and more feedback. We obviously have fantastic research and anecdotal evidence to support women's experiences of it, but we are trying to continue to collect that information so that it is the most up to date as well. So we really do encourage you to share any feedback that you do get so that we continue to improve on Dilapan as well. In terms of education and development for your teams, we are really proud to have started sort of our training webinars now, which are held monthly and are hosted by one of the AGH team. We have obviously topical webinars, which you guys have already attended, and peer sharing events as well, literature summaries, and there is also a podcast. There are new bite-sized episodes, so they are sort of a 10-minute thing to listen to in the shower, in the car, wherever, and really helps get a bit of insight from peers about their experiences of Dilapan as well. And there is a case studies library as well, which has sort of audit data from various hospitals across the UK, which is also available online, all at aghealth.co.uk. And this is just a really quick example of the case studies library. It said it's data on over 1,800 women and birthing people. It's audit data that hospitals very kindly shared with us. It is still anonymous, but it gives you a rough idea of sort of their birth rates and who they use their Dilapan for. And then it also has obviously links to interviews, videos, podcasts and more, and tips from experienced healthcare professionals that have been using it. And that's just an example there. You can see on the side, you've got the hospital location, the birth rate, the other methods that they use in the patient groups. And it just gives you a really good indicator. You can sort of compare against your own hospital. And this isn't, you know, gold standard or anything like that. But if you ever want to have a chat to the main person from that hospital, we can get you in contact with them as well. Brilliant. So that is the end of the webinar. Has anybody else got any questions at all, either for myself or Natasha or Kate? I don't see any hands up. I just want to say a massive thank you to both Natasha and Kate for sparing a bit of their time and running through their implementation and ongoing success with Dilapan, as well as, you know, things that they want to continue to develop on. And I think I can speak for everybody on the call to say that it was a fantastic presentation and really useful to find out some of the things that you guys have been doing as well.
Thanks so much. It was great.
Perfect. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But if not, then yes, thank you for your time and please do have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you would like to learn more about Dilapan-S and how it can help in your hospital, please visit our website, which is linked in the description.